Welcome to the 13th episode of StreamCast with me, James Rutherford, also known as Charizard James, on Twitch and other social media platforms, where we take a deep dive into the lives of all your favorite streamers and content creators. Today, joined with us is MythicMatt. Take a minute, Matt, to introduce yourself.
Hi, glad to be here. So I started streaming a little over a year ago now, and I play mostly constructed. You can find me streaming at 7 Pacific, 4 days a week, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And yeah, it's been a great ride so far. I'm really enjoying it and meeting so many people in the streaming community and so many people that just love to watch some magic.
Yeah, one of the things about loving to watch Magic that I really like about your streams when I watch you is that you're always playing a deck that like you want to play, not necessarily a deck that you think will get more viewers or a deck that you maybe found somewhere. Maybe you do find your deck somewhere, but I always find you playing a deck that's always like kind of off the beaten path. Like maybe yeah, you played Esper Doom Foretold, but like you're always putting your own spin on it. Like how many Dream Trawlers do you play, or how many of this card do you play? And there's always like one or two cards that are just like, why the heck are you playing this? And then you have to like go to your stream and like really find out and really realize that you're being super smart about it. So like I kind of want to talk to you
Well,
about
thank
that
you.
to start off before we get into your streaming story. Like talk about
I love
your
that.
innovation in your decks, even in standard or maybe even in historic, and some of your favorite decks that you like to play, and just talk about your innovation strategy and your flavor on the decks that you play.
Yeah, so I have kind of two things going on that pull me in opposite directions. I absolutely love to fight against the metagame, so it's very hard for me to make myself play the quote unquote best deck. But I'm also super competitive, so I'm always trying to brew up something that I think stands a real chance, but is not a popular deck, and maybe is just not a deck at all that anybody's tried before. So I'm often trying to balance those two things and come up with something that is really competitive, but isn't quite the same as what's currently being played in all the top tournaments.
Give us an example. What has been your favorite deck over the past like maybe I don't know a couple weeks or a month that you've tried to like? I know you do a lot of deck tuning on stream too. That you think okay, I like this deck. It's kind of off the beaten path. I'm super competitive. Talk about one of the decks that you think is one of your favorites in that spectrum that you've been talking about.
Sure, I can think of two examples that are pretty recent. The most recent one is the Banish into Fable deck that I built, and I had a ton of fun designing that and playing it. And it really suits kind of my play style in general. I like to have a lot of kind of controlling elements in my decks. And another one before that, probably about a season or two before that, was a Jeskai Midnight Clock control deck. And it's I enjoy building decks and tuning them because you also learn a lot about which cards are well positioned in the metagame and maybe certain interactions that the metagame might be weak to, and it kind of pushes your understanding of the overall metagame. But yeah, those two decks I had a lot of fun building and had a good amount of success with them as well.
So you could say you're a meta hater, but you're also a meta creator.
I don't know if I would actually qualify myself for that second one, but I'd like to think that one day maybe I'll some way help to shape the metagame. But yeah, I definitely am always trying to fight against the metagames, usually to my detriment, but I can't help myself.
Well, when you fight against a specific deck or a couple of decks that are high and mighty in the meta, and you make this Banish into Fable deck, for example, that has some insane undefeated win rate, you can kind of create another meta based on that. If a lot of people take a hold of and start building and playing your deck.
Yeah, I think one thing that also holds that back a little bit is I don't play a ton of tournaments. I actually try to get away from Magic on the weekends for the most part. I spend so much time during the week, thinking and creating and doing things Magic. So I don't usually get to run those decks in a lot of the high visibility tournaments. But I do think if I play in one and do well with it, that is a possibility.
So let's go ahead and talk about and I'll let you talk for as long as you want. Let's go ahead and talk about your streaming story. How did you start streaming? Why did you start streaming? And give us a timeline, a little bit detailed if you'd like, leading up till where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I actually can remember very vividly why I started streaming. It was December of 2019, and I was on vacation actually in the same place I am now, visiting my family. and I just was playing Arena on my laptop. And at the time, I was playing Teamer Clover, and my brother was here as well, and he saw that I was ranked in like the top 20, of the Mythic rankings, and he was like, "You should really start streaming. People would want to watch." And I thought about it for a little bit, and I'm actually really introverted, so it was a pretty big decision for me. But at the same time, it seemed like a lot of fun to get to kind of share one of my passions, playing Magic with a larger community. So I actually purchased a new computer to get set up for streaming, and I started streaming for the first time in late January 2020. And then when COVID hit in, mid March, my schedule changed a lot. Obviously, we're all kind of at home, so I made a real commitment to it and started streaming more frequently. And from there, just over time, was able to grow my stream a little bit each month.
So talk about the actual growth of your stream, which you were talking about. Get into a little bit of detail about like, because I think if streamers are listening to this and they're a streamer, they want to start streaming, or maybe they just started streaming. Talk about the early days. Talk about like your first week or two, and then get into like how you got your first group of people that you could say these are my people, right? Because I know I've been to your streams a lot, and there's some people that are always there. Maybe they were there from the beginning, maybe not. There's some people you know Cadnar or Triple J. Like I know these people because they're in your streams every time, and maybe they were there for a long time ago. Talk about what kind of step. Maybe you took some extra steps. Maybe you didn't. Talk about 0 to 10 viewers.
Yeah. So, when I first started streaming, I basically corralled, my friends to be there, so I wasn't streaming into the void. I have a friend, Mark, also known as Royal Aid, who was my first mod and has been there from the beginning. His wife, Becca, always is watching as well. And then, yeah, I would just kind of get my family and a couple coworkers to watch. But my early streams for the first several months were anywhere between like 2 and 3 viewers on average, I would say. So pretty small streams. And then, somehow, some way, people would kind of find their way in. And I have been fortunate. I've had some people that have been watching from almost the very beginning. It was crazy. I saw people kind of re-upping subscriptions the other day, and it was like a 12-month resub for some of the people that have been there. AltFX and Eder are a couple that come to mind as well. So it's been cool to be able to hang out with some of these people since, over a year ago when I was just getting started. And then over time, my numbers started to kind of go up. I'd get like 7 or 8 average viewers. And I'm talking about over a period of months, this was happening. John Likes Games actually rated us fairly early on.
Yeah.
And he rated us with like 20 or 30 people, and it was awesome. So I got to meet a lot of people from his community. And then at one point, I know that I got a raid from Jeff Hoogland, and that was really cool, or a host. And so I got a lot of new people introduced to the stream that way. And then it's one of those things that kind of snowballs a little bit. Once you start increasing your viewership, you get more and more. And yeah, I guess now we've come to the point where we are regularly on stream for over 100 people, which has been kind of surreal. It's been really cool.
I bet going from 10 to 20 viewers when you got rated by Jeff Hoagland or getting rated by John Likes Games to having over 100, it's got to be some kind of mental shift, right? It's got to be some kind of like maybe you can't read all the messages. I mean, you do a very good one of the best jobs I can say as a streamer of reading everybody's messages. Like I'm pretty sure you read 100% of people's messages, and also like say there's like 5 seconds where someone doesn't say anything or 10 seconds, you'll like go back up the list and ask somebody else like that had already spoken like something else and expand on what they had already said, which is like something that barely any other streamer does, which I've noticed. Why do you do that? And I think it's a great thing. And kind of what drives you to be like that motivated to read everyone's message and kind of talk everyone through their thought processes. And I mean, you answer every single person. I don't care what it is. You answer every single person's message. It's crazy. It's awesome. And you have over 200 viewers sometimes. Talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. No, I really do try to do that. First of all, if someone's taking the time to put something in the chat or ask something, I definitely want to value that and value their time and try to respond to that. Also, I love being interactive. A big goal of my stream when I started is to kind of help us all learn and improve at Magic together. So one way I try to accomplish that is by talking through my thought process as I'm playing and talking about what I'm thinking about or what I'm playing around. But then a lot of people will ask questions or, say, why didn't you do this or try that? And sometimes the answer is, oh, I missed that.
Hmm.
A lot of time the answer though is that, oh no, I think it would be better in this case if we did the line that we played. So yeah, I really do try to read all the messages. I will try to read back up if I haven't gotten to them in a little bit. And that's kind of the most rewarding part of it for me is the interaction with the viewers and being able to actually incorporate them into the stream.
Let's talk about something a little bit off topic that I really want to get to. Talk about your
Sure.
fish hat. It's kind of like a logo for your stream now at this point. It might have started out as like I wear a hat because I just like this hat, and now it's just like I don't know if it's a meme or I don't know if it's like why is that a part of your brand now, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so it did just kind of start out by coincidence. I just happened to have this like a Patagonia hat with a fish on it, and I think honestly part of it was probably because it was like right when we started quarantine, so I wasn't getting haircuts, so I was just like I'm just gonna wear the hat on stream every day, and it just sort of became part of the brand because I was wearing it every day, and then that hat got really beaten up and it it didn't look so great anymore. So I got this new fish hat with the same logo, different color. But yeah, I got it. All. Also, what solidified it is that I commissioned some emotes for the stream, and so in the emotes, I'm wearing the fish hat. And I'm like, well, now I can never take the hat off because it's part of the part of the stream presence. So yeah, it just started out by coincidence and then became part of the branding.
That's funny. It feels like for those of you listening on podcasts, you couldn't see Matt's reaction to that, but like it was kind of like a funny slash even almost cringe reaction that you were like, I don't know why this became a thing, but it's a thing, and I'm going with it.
Yeah, pretty much. We're just gonna run with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk about before streaming. How was your? I know it's very broad, but how was your like high school life slash childhood? How did all of that lead into streaming? And so talk about before you started streaming.
Sure. So I've always had like a lot of different things that I'm interested in. I think that's one thing about me is that I always have like a pretty broad range of things that I'm learning or, checking out or considering doing. So I'll just kind of go through maybe some of the careers that I either held or, considered doing. So I worked as a personal trainer for a little while I was in college. I also very nearly became a professional poker player, especially when online poker was really popular. I was doing that a lot during college as well, and I was super into poker. I read all the books and I, played all the time and was like, I just love the strategy of it. But it became a little bit too monotonous and I wasn't enjoying it as much. And I knew that if I did that as a career, I would get totally burnt out and just not enjoy the game anymore. So I decided not to do that. I also studied computer science and criminal justice. I've always had interest in like computer programming and computer games, and then I also love like mysteries. And I thought for a long time that I wanted to be a detective. I actually went to grad school for forensic science and worked at like a university police department. And while I was doing that, I just realized that it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was pretty depressing, and it just wasn't for me. Um, and I realized that I loved to teach and coach because I'd always like run summer camps and like taught tennis and those type of things. So I transitioned to a career in education and I became a teacher and a coach of several sports, soccer, wrestling, and tennis. And long story short, I ended up at an amazing school in California where I get to do incredible project based learning with awesome students. And I'm super happy that I made that decision to get an education.
That's similar to even the athletic part of it, similar to Strider Stone, where I was saying I had no clue that you wanted to be athletic. I had no clue that you were athletic at all. Like you don't give off the jock personality. I don't think, especially during your streams. Like you're so nice and you're so interactive and you're so like teacher minded and things. I had no clue that you were like tennis and soccer and all this kind of stuff. I could see poker, I think, because you're like big brain when you play Magic. You have
Yeah,
these
I
lines that
actually
I could
love
just never
sports
think
too.
of. Yeah, like, talk about
Oh,
like
thank
your
you.
love for sports.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I always loved playing sports. I actually founded a wrestling team at the high school that I attended, and yeah, to this day, I love to just play any sport, pickup games, whatever. I don't get to do that as much anymore, especially now, obviously with COVID. But I've definitely enjoyed coaching the sports as well. So I ended up coaching all the sports that I played in high school: soccer, wrestling, and tennis. And now I get to go play tennis with my girlfriend Dana pretty frequently. We go a couple times a week, and that's always a highlight of the week.
Is that what sport you're the best at? Is tennis out of all those?
Ooh, that's a great question. I actually think I'm a little bit better at wrestling, but I did play club tennis in college, and that was a lot of fun.
Have you? Is it just like the? Are you into mixed martial arts, or what kind of wrestling is it?
Yeah, so the wrestling that I coached was just like collegiate wrestling. So the traditional wrestling that's at all high schools,
In onesies?
but yeah, in the singlets.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, not onesies.
so
Okay, I apologize to everyone, every wrestler listening to this. Okay, not a onesie, singlet.
you just angered the entire wrestling community. Uh-oh.
Controversial stream. Here we go.
So I now though I've been doing like private jujitsu lessons recently once a week, which has been really cool. And as soon as it's like a little bit safer, which we're getting really close to with all the vaccinations and everything, I do think I'm gonna start going to like group jujitsu classes and pursue that a little bit.
That's awesome. And that's Brazilian jiu jitsu, or is there a different kind?
Correct. Yeah, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
So, do you want to get into MMA?
So in my list of many things that I've considered over the course of my life,
It's been a
about
lot.
yeah, about 10 years ago, I did consider like maybe getting into MMA, but I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to like actually get in a cage and fight somebody, but I do enjoy like the the martial arts aspect of grappling and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in particular. It's almost like physical chess. It's pretty cool. It's amazing how much you can learn and how you can really apply that in like an actual situation where you're grappling with somebody. So I love that aspect of it. It's a true mental and physical workout.
There's someone that I do like the UFC and MMA as well, and there's someone that I think kind of embodies that you know physical chess aspect of it, which is Israel Adesanya.
He is an
And
incredible fighter. Yeah, super talented and really creative as well. I haven't watched as much UFC recently as I used to, but my all-time favorite, and it's not close, is George St Pierre.
oh, me too.
And
That's my favorite.
oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, he's incredible, and he's always like very much like the thinking man's fighter, and he's always like pushing the sport. And he was actually, in my opinion at least, the first one that like really utilized the jab effectively in mixed martial arts up until one of his matches. I'm trying to remember exactly who it was against. Might have been Josh Koscheck. Um, UFC got like a bad rap for like not using the jab at all, which is like one of the most important punches in boxing. And I just remember like he came out and just absolutely picked apart his opponent with his jab and then set up the rest of his stuff. There was another fight against Matt Hughes
I saw that
where
one. I was
he
about to talk about that one actually.
yeah, so he had a couple low kicks in the first round, and he basically baited Hughes into like anticipating that a kick was going to go low, and then like hit him with this head kick
Yep,
and
yep.
just
I remember that.
got him out of nowhere. So really enjoy watching George St Pierre fight. And also like his work ethic is second to none. I read his book, and he talks about like the most important training days are the days that you just really don't want to go,
Hmm.
and that stuck with me too. And I'm always impressed by that.
There was one thing I think it was right after that kick to Matt Hughes that he did something he doesn't usually do, and that's knock somebody out. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not really known as a knockout fighter.
So he kind of like is smart in that way too. Like he's like, okay, I'm actually gonna finish this fight because my opponent doesn't think I'm gonna do this. So I mean, I don't play a lot of chess, but is it similar to that in the chess world? Like if you're very popular in chess and someone thinks you that you play in a certain style, is that even on usual? Is that usually on chess people's minds that you should play outside of your style in certain points or have self awareness in that aspect?
Yeah, so it's not styles as much as openings. So what like professional chess players do is they prepare for their opponent's opening. So if you are traditionally like a Queen's Gambit player, uh, No, I didn't pick that because of the show, but that's just like the first opening that popped into my mind.
No way. Nope,
Your
I don't believe it.
opponent, your opponent will look through your games in a database, and they'll see how you play in all these certain situations, and they'll like prepare an opening anticipating what you're going to do. So definitely, chess players can level their opponents by picking a totally different opening that their opponent, not only didn't prepare for, but also they spent so much time wasted preparing for what they expected. So yeah, that is definitely a thing in the chess world.
And then you said you played poker almost professionally. Is that an aspect of poker too? Is that like every kind of game? Does because I've seen poker tournaments and like the last tables and things on YouTube because I'm interested in it. I just don't play a lot of it.
Mhm.
I can kind of see that certain players, even in poker, have certain styles, even if it's just like when they usually fold or what hands they usually have when they keep playing and things like that. You coming from a poker background too, does that apply on that as well?
Yeah, so I'd say in poker, that's like at a very, very high level that you would start considering like um, a player's style. There's so many like fundamentals and basics that come before that, but once you get to a certain level and you're really observant, which you should be, like if you're at a poker table when you're not in a hand, you should be watching what's going on during that hand and like what the players are playing and what hands get shown at the end because you can pick up like the different playing styles of the people at the table and then you can use that against them. Um, but it's I think people get a little bit too interested in like tells or the things in like the poker movies. Playing like good fundamental poker is definitely the start, but once you get to a certain level, you can take advantage of people's tendencies. And also, a big thing in poker now is the idea of ranges, which is like you can essentially put your opponent on a range of cards they could possibly have based on the actions they've taken, and deciding like the way you should play against that range of cards. Like should you fold, should you raise, that type of thing.
Do you still play poker?
Um, Not really. I definitely still enjoy it, and I've played like some home game tournaments before the pandemic hit, but that's kind of my last poker playing. But I do still really enjoy it, and I still have a pretty good database of knowledge about it.
That's awesome. I feel like you have a good database of knowledge of a lot of things.
I
Soccer,
think that's
tennis,
yeah, that's
wrestling,
my varied
magic,
interest.
poker.
Yeah, I do kind of pride myself in that. I try to at least know, something about a lot of things, and I try to learn a lot about things I become interested in. So that's kind of lends me to knowing a decent amount about a really wide variety of things.
So when you like started playing Magic, were you? I can imagine you like wanting to learn wrestling, and then you were just all in learning wrestling for like a certain period of time, and then poker, you're like, oh, this seems like a cool game. Go all in, learning everything I can. Was it the same thing for Magic?
Yeah, it was. You're right. I definitely have that personality where I will dive in like 110% to something I'm getting into. When I first got into Magic, it was playing Magic Online a little over a decade ago now, when Rise of the Eldrazi was the current set, and I remember just drafting over and over and over again, and watching like almost obsessively like all the draft videos on YouTube. I watched so many of LSV's
Mm-hmm.
draft videos to learn more about what is this game and what should I be doing. And yeah, I definitely dive in pretty hard to my interest.
Now I didn't know that you started off Magic learning about draft.
Yeah, that's actually something probably a lot of people don't know, is that I really was like a limited player exclusively for several years when I started Magic, and then I eventually became interested in constructed formats and kind of transitioned over to being more of a constructed player. But yeah, back when I was first starting out, I was really really interested in limited.
What transitioned you from limited to constructed?
I think a lot of it was the deck building aspect. I really do enjoy kind of building decks and trying to metagame and that type of thing. I find there's also kind of more tournaments and things geared towards constructed play, and I think that had a part of it. But I still am definitely interested in limited, and I like the idea of that like every draft is different, and you have to really navigate those challenges and play like a different deck each time. So I like both formats.
Is there something that you don't like a lot about limited, or maybe even something you don't like about constructed?
For limited, I think it's really format specific. I think a lot of people experience where a format can get kind of stale a little bit, where it's sort of identified like what types of decks there are. They play out in similar ways, or maybe there's one deck that is kind of dominant in the format, like cycling with Ikoria. So I think it's really format specific. There are definitely formats where I could just draft them endlessly, and there are other formats where, after 10 or 20 drafts, I'm just like, okay, I've kind of seen, about this set, and it just doesn't hold my interest for as long.
I was definitely like that with the Theros limited, with everyone after a while just only drafting the constellation creature, like the 1 or 2 drop or whatever it was. And everyone drafted that, and that was objectively the best thing to be doing. And then every time I tried to like go off the path and draft something else, I just got demolished. And maybe even the same thing with cycling. What are your favorite formats to draft?
Well, so I mentioned Rosalie Eldrazi already. I think there's a big nostalgia factor there, but it is actually a super, super good draft format. There's a lot of different like build around type cards that are well supported. There's so many different archetypes that you can draft, and in my opinion, they found a good way to balance like the ramping to giant Eldrazi's, which is probably like one of the tier 1 strategies, with like there's some pretty cool like aggressive interactions like Kiln Fiend Distortion Strike that can potentially keep those things in check. Yeah, so that's the one that like always jumps out. I also really liked I want to say it was Khans of Tarkir. There was like it had a River Hoopy or Hoopu in it.
River
and it, like I
Hoopo,
just
right?
Yeah,
Hoopo?
River Hoop something.
River Hoop, yeah, basketball hoop, yeah, that.
And then I would just like draft 5-color nonsense over and over, and it was so much fun. So I think I like slower draft formats in general, because I am always trying to like make some sort of a cool either like high power deck or synergistic deck.
I've noticed that you do play like I don't ever see you play 1 or 2 color decks. It's always like 3 or 4 or 5. Is it that did that stem from that like that set of playing limited, or where did that come from?
I think if you're talking about constructed, it just comes from like kind of what we talked about with Mono Blue, maybe before the podcast started, where I like having answers to all different sorts of situations. So I never want to be in a game where I just feel like, okay, like if this happens, there's just no way I can win on it, and it's only like turn 3 or something like
Yeah.
that. So having multicolored decks provides you with diverse answers, and I think it's a little bit hard for me to play a deck that doesn't have access to blue mana. I just love having access to counter magic. So, I think that also pushes me often into, multicolored or, 3-color decks.
Now that I have a good example of that. I was playing Crow's Stream League Finals winning deck, the blue-black control deck, a few weeks ago, and my cycling opponent played the 2-mana enchantment that makes 1/1 flyers every time you draw an extra card. Improbable Alliance. And I said to myself, I don't have an answer to this card in the entire deck.
Yeah.
Well, they have 1/1 flyers every turn. I guess I lose. And it was like a turn 2 enchantment. So if I wasn't
that's not a good feeling.
If I wasn't on the play and I had exactly negate, I can't win. Like it just felt like really sad. And maybe if I played 3 colors and I just played like a few Binding of the Old Gods or something like that, or Binding the Old Gods, I would have a chance against that because they don't play many counter spells, and I could just resolve that, hit their Probable Alliance, and then continue with the game from there. Or maybe even a hard cast Shark Typhoon. No answer. So I'm in the same boat. Like one of my favorite decks of all time was, I usually stick to like 3 or 4 color 3 color decks. Sometimes I go to 4, but my favorite deck ever was a 5-color Niv-Mizzet Reborn deck with Fires of Invention, and it played every good card you could ever think of. I mean, there was Deafening Clarion, there was Kenrith, there was Growth Spiral, there was Fires of Invention, there was, of course, the Niv-Mizzet Reborn, Assassin's Trophy, literally everything you can ever think of, because I wanted to play the best cards that you could possibly play. And it was just my favorite deck ever. I could do anything, but I could also lose very hard to myself, but still. I could do anything.
Yeah, everybody loves a good 5-color Niv-Mizzet deck. I think Mike Sigris is actually currently playing one on the Pro Tour, which is pretty sweet.
Like that's the thing though. Like there's so many good cards that are multicolored. It's just a matter of like, is the mana good enough or not? I'm actually, you know what? I might play a Niv-Mizzet deck now that I think about it. I love that deck. It's just Fires of Invention just made it so much better, right? You can go like Niv-Mizzet Reborn. You can go like Fires of Invention on turn 4 plus something else. And I played Beanstalk Giant because even though it wasn't double colored, it fixed my mana. And I could haste it with Kenrith when I had 7 mana for basically free. Like I could cast like double Beanstalk Giant if Kenrith is on the board already, and then haste them for game, and they have trample. So it fixed my mana, and it was a threat. So
the Fires was an insane card.
Yeah. Fires is just like absurd, but I might build that because there's some cool cards like Binding the Old Gods is a double colored card. There's certain things like even Showdown of the Scalds that are 2 colors that you can get off of Niv-Mizzet Reborn. So probably excited about trying that out. I'm gonna try that out today.
Nice, very cool.
So
make sure you throw some Casualties of War in there.
Oh yeah, that too. You can just play every good card and just not care. Yeah, Hydroid Crisis, bring it on.
Oh yeah.
What is one of your, whether it's player based or deck based, what is your biggest pet peeve in Magic?
Biggest pet peeve in Magic? That's a really good question.
I don't see you not liking things a lot because you're a very positive person. One of the most positive people that I know. Let's hear something that you just kind of like irks you a little bit, like when the opponent does something.
I mean, I think this is sort of like the low-hanging fruit, but I think everybody gets a little frustrated at like the emote spamming opponents. So I try to keep my cool demeanor, but every time your opponent starts spamming your go over and over, it's never a pleasant experience. So I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah, there's no positive that can come out of that, right? It's just only negative. Let's see. Let's talk about something else. What is something? I mean, we talked about your sports already. So outside of sports and other games, what does the gaming community specifically not know about you already?
Oh man, there's so many things I could think of. One fun fact that I often bring up for that type of a question is that in 8th grade, for a period of about a month, I had pink hair.
What?
That is something that very few people know about me or would guess. I actually attempted to dye my hair red, but I think, washed it out for too long, and it turned out hot pink. And I actually thought it was pretty cool. My parents asked me to get a haircut like every week because they were not a fan. But yeah, I had bright pink hair for about a month when I was in 8th grade.
So, did you get the haircut yet? So, I was thinking, did you get the haircut?
Yeah.
Wow, I would have never guessed. That's awesome, though. So the pink was an accident. It was supposed to just be jet red.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like like Coke can red, and it turned out hot pink, and I really enjoyed it.
Jaffer says it means you didn't let it sit long enough, or you needed to dye it again.
Jaffer is probably correct.
I know that he just dyed his hair bright yellow.
Nice.
I don't know if you've seen it, but it's pretty cool.
I think I saw the Twitter picture. I love it.
Apparently his hair's blue now, so he's changing it by the day.
Man, that's an exciting thing. So we got to tune into Jaffer's stream each day to see what color his hair currently is.
Yeah, we just have to. It's the hair roulette. Let's talk about some social media and some streaming tips for people that are streaming or that want to stream. How large of a factor do you put onto social media /Twitter /YouTube, and how do you think, if so, it's contributed to your growth, or do you even think it does?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think that a best practice is to have an active YouTube channel and an active Twitch channel. You're going to get a lot of audience members discovering you on one and coming to check you out on the other, which is awesome. And it just gives you a chance to grow your audience in multiple ways. Personally, for me, I'm pretty busy these days, and I've kind of neglected my YouTube channel. I just don't really have the time to go through and edit videos for it. Maybe over the summer, I'll get back to more actively posting on my YouTube channel. But I would definitely recommend, if you have the time to do it, to try to grow both of those channels kind of in tandem. In terms of Twitter, I use Twitter mostly to kind of like promote when I'm going live or let people know what deck I'm playing in case they're interested. So I think it is a really good way to connect with your audience. Also, it can be a good way to get discovered. So, for example, I've posted a couple decks that I've done really well with, or that I created or had like significant, unique spins on. So early on, I created an Esper Doom Foretold deck that was before like Esper Doom was actually popular. And I remember I posted it at Arena Deck Lists or whatever, and they retweeted it, and I had a whole bunch of new like viewers on my YouTube the next day. So there are definitely ways to put something out there that is of value to people, that can help them discover you as well. So I think those are all important aspects as you're trying to grow your community.
Um, what has there been anything that you did that you realize after, man, that wasn't that good, but this is what I learned, and this is why I'm in the place that I am today. Whether it's your life or streaming.
I mean, yeah, we've all definitely learned from mistakes in life. I'll stick to Magic here because one thing does kind of come to mind. So I was fortunate enough to qualify for the previous Pro Tour, and I kind of thought I had a good method for preparing for it. I was, testing it on the ladder and trying to get a little bit of targeted testing with like one or two people, but largely I was mostly just kind of, playing in the Mythic ladder and tuning my decks that way. And I saw afterward that pretty much exclusively like everybody was testing with teams, and there's just so much value in that, and I think I underestimated that. So one thing I've definitely learned is if I'm fortunate enough to qualify for another major event in the future, I will look to collaborate with a testing team and work with others, because I think you just one it's a fun experience to have that camaraderie going into it, but also there's a lot of value that comes out of that and the information you can learn from each other.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Actually, talk more about that. Because I
Sure.
saw some things and saw some people talking about it. Um, do you like? I mean, it's very awesome to collaborate with people, especially if you qualify for a big event. And to to get to know some of these bigger creators that all maybe they make it into the top cut every time, or maybe there are just like maybe a lot more skilled than we are. And some people are more skilled than others, but you can tell when there's like a Luis Salvato in his testing team, or some someone that's made the MPL back to back times. Um, Talk about the significance and like bringing everyone together that testing teams really put into the Magic community. I feel like we talk a lot about individual players when they do really well, and without thinking about they were part of this team that was with like four other people, and maybe like almost all of those people did well too, but this person ended up actually winning. Talk about the team aspect of it, and it not being just the person that won or maybe one specific deck list, but a group of people as a whole.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is like time is limited, right? So just there's only so much that you can test or try out on your own. Um, and I think by just kind of crowdsourcing that and getting the net benefit of five people or six people's time right there alone, you're going to get to discover more. But also there's so much more to it too, because every person's going to bring their own unique views and their creativity and their talents to that testing team. So you might have somebody that's just fantastic at tuning decks that can help the group decide on like, oh, this is the right number of main deck fatal pushes for the expected metagame. And you could have other players that are just like such completely fantastic technical players, and so when you're testing a matchup with them, you're getting such good information, because maybe a matchup that you thought was actually favorable for your deck, it turns out when you're up against higher quality competition, it's not. So there's that aspect of it, but just the way that you can utilize a team of people to learn so much more than you can ever do on your own, and to really focus, and also again even the like camaraderie of it and the joy that you get of working together. There's just so many positive things that come with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's one of the things I love the most about. I mean, especially the Magic community. It's just like everyone looks to support everyone, which is so awesome. And I'm sure if you qualified, going back to the question I asked before, I'm sure if you when you qualified, if you ask somebody if they had a testing partner and wanted to test with them, they would be like, yeah, of course, sure, kind of thing. I just love how everyone's so like community driven in this
Yeah.
community for sure.
No, absolutely. And I was fortunate. I did have, some people helping me out a little bit. I think about Dogger, Cubone, Bob,
Yep.
kind of letting me know like, hey, this deck seems to be picking up in the metagame. Like, make sure it's on your radar. So really appreciate him. But yeah, I think it would have been just incredibly beneficial for me to really work with a group to prepare for that, because I underestimated how valuable that was.
And you were playing Esper Doom for that event?
Yeah, I played Esper Doom as a split event. It was standard and historic. So I played Esper Doom in standard, and I feel good about that choice. And it was a deck I was super comfortable with. And I played Sultai in historic, and I built it and tuned it myself to be particularly strong in the mirror, which I thought I was going to play a lot of. And I don't think I ever faced the mirror, so
Oh my
I ended up
gosh.
3-4 at the Pro Tour.
At least you won almost half your matches for being played against the non-existent mirror that you thought you were going to be.
Yeah, no, I as much as I would have loved to do better than that, I'm still proud to have at least won some matches on my first ever Pro Tour, and I definitely learned a lot from it.
Well, huge congratulations for even qualifying and making it that far in the first place. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
What's your favorite? I mean, maybe you're playing Esper Doom and that's your favorite, but what's your favorite color combination?
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before we went on the air. So I really do love Esper. I also really enjoy Sultai. There's something about the combination of like being able to ramp and do kind of like broken things while having access to counter magic, while having unconditional removal, that really speaks to me. So off the top of my head, I would have to say it has to be Esper or Sultai, and it kind of depends on the day that you ask me.
So I'll just ask you tomorrow. You'll say
Yeah,
Esper.
we'll see.
um, let's talk about one of your favorite Sultai decks, and this is one that I caught a bunch of on your stream as well. Talk about the inception of the idea of your Sultai Flash deck that you played a couple months back.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed. I had a standard Sultai Flash deck that was based on one built by Kushiro, who's currently playing in the Pro Tour and doing very well. He's a super creative deck builder. If you don't follow him on Twitter, I think it's Kushiro MTG or something similar. But it was a Sultai Flash deck that I decided to include the top end of Casualties of War in, because it was actually really good in that metagame. I believe that was when Nissa was running rampant. And yeah, it was just an absolute blast. The idea, it also had a Sublime Epiphany. So you would try to grow spiral into a Night Pack Ambusher, and then a turn or two later, you would be Sublime Epiphany, countering the opponent's spell, copying an Ambusher, and you just couldn't lose from there. So it was super fun.
That sounds terrible to play against.
Yeah, for sure.
I do not want to play against that deck. I mean, I feel like the only way you can beat that is if you stumble and I'm playing mono red.
Yeah, you have to go underneath it for sure.
Because you
The
do
thing is, like,
not want
Night Pack
to.
Ambusher is a house.
Oh
So
yeah,
even at,
even
like,
then,
yeah,
like you don't want to get into the Sublime Epiphany like Gear Hulk loop, even if it's in historic and not even in standard. Was it in standard at the time that you played the Night Pack Ambusher, or was it in historic?
this was in standard, so no Gear Hulk. But Sublime Epiphany and Night Pack Ambusher were both standard legal, and they were a fearsome duo.
Have you tried Sultai Flash in historic yet?
I have, and it is also incredibly fun. I'll probably play more of that over the coming weeks. Although Historic's going to get a major shakeup soon, which is pretty exciting.
But I think it's a shakeup might be in favor of Sultai Flash. Do you see the 2 mana counterspell?
I don't think I did actually.
It's
Uh,
I think it's called Memory Leak.
oh, okay.
I think it's called that. I could be wrong. 1 and a blue, so 2 mana, counter target spell, period. And then the next line is put it on the top of their deck instead of in the graveyard.
Interesting. So I think Memory Leak is the black card that's currently in standard that's in cycling. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So you counter the spell and you put it on top of their library. I mean, that seems fantastic.
Yeah, it's like an Aether Gust for everything. Oh, Mana Leak. It's an Aether Gust,
Mm,
but it can't target something already on the board. It's like a counter spell, but also an Aether Gust.
yeah.
It's no, it's
All right.
not.
I'll
It's
have to
actually
check that
not
out.
mana. It's not Mana Leak because that's counter a
No,
spell
it's
unless
definitely
it's
not Mana
controller
Leak.
pays 3. I know it's not that one. It's something.
Okay. I'll check it out.
um,
I'll find it.
Memory Lapse. Memory Lapse. There we go.
Oh, cool, cool.
It says 1 in a blue instant counter target spell. Period. If that spell is countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard.
Yeah, it seems fantastic.
So that's like another kind of card. I don't know. Would you play that and Censor in the same deck? Probably, right? You just play both.
You definitely could. Yeah.
And Censor is in that like happy medium where it's like a bad cantrip, but also is just a counter spell like that counters anything, not just non creatures or just creatures. It can counter anything, but it's very situational, countering everything. But it's also just a cantrip when you draw it late game.
Yeah, Censor is a card that's easy to underestimate because I think you forget how good it is to be able to just cycle it for 1 mana when you don't need it.
For sure. I actually I see we saw another card similar to that see play, but it's not seeing play anymore as far as I've seen. I haven't seen it in a couple weeks, if not a month. There's a 3 mana counter spell that has cycling. I forgot the name off the top of my head, but
Neutralize.
it's neutralize. It's kind of lost favor in historic. Why do you think that is?
I think 3 mana for a counterspell is just a little bit expensive in historic, especially when the top deck, their best threats are like 1 mana in terms of the cat and the oven combo. So 3 mana is probably a little bit expensive in general for counterspells in historic, unless your whole deck is built around like absorb and you're just trying to stay alive until you get to fairy down.
Well, that's the thing though. They're also playing absorb.
Yeah, so absorb gaining you life, I think helps that specific deck's game plan of staying alive long enough to stabilize, where neutralize not being able to gain you life and being 3 mana probably pushes it to a little bit more of the fringes.
Hmm. Um. I mean, drawing a 3 mana counter spell when you don't need a counter spell or when you can't counter anything is a lot worse than just cycling the card away, though. So it was interesting to me that it kind of just fell out of favor almost out of nowhere to me.
Yeah, it's still seeing play. I've definitely seen it still being played, but I think there's a big difference between cycling it for 2 and cycling for 1. That's part of it. And then, yeah, just the story decks in general have been super low to the ground. So that makes your 3 mana counter spells a little bit less impressive.
Especially even if you're on the play against something like a Burning Tree Emissary, you do not want a 3 mana counter spell in your hand.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you're just kind of dead in the water because they could kill you basically on their turn 4 if you're on the draw before you even get a chance to Wrath of God or anything like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of your Magic goals. You talked about making it to the Pro Tour. Is that the end all here, or what's your goals for Magic competitively?
Yeah, I definitely would like to make it back to the Pro Tour. That is a big one. That's probably my most immediate goal. Um, I would hate to eventually make it into like a rivals league or something like that. That could be incredibly cool as well. And then I think also, I want to just continue to grow my community, try to make sure it's a really positive place for everybody, and kind of help others get more interested and learn and grow in Magic together.
Let's talk about some of your streaming goals, not just Magic. And you kind of touched on it just now, but is there any specific goals that you have for your actual stream, or maybe even for your YouTube? Talk about some of your goals for that. It doesn't have to be super far in the future, or it can be whatever you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, I don't have any like number centric goals. I would like to become partnered with Twitch. That is definitely a goal of mine. And then, yeah, I think one thing I really just want to focus on is again creating that environment that's like a fun, positive place for absolutely anybody to hang out, and also just a place where we can all learn and be proud of like each other's accomplishments. One thing that I definitely pride myself on is being excited, like legitimately, when a viewer tells me they made gold for the first time or they made platinum for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I definitely want to be a place where we can all celebrate that and kind of cheer each other on as we're going through our Magic journey together.
Yeah, that's something that I love doing as well because even if you make Mythic all the time or someone else makes Diamond all the time, when someone says they made Platinum for the first time or Gold, that's a huge accomplishment. I remember the first time I made Diamond. I remember the first time I made Mythic. I stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning grinding my heart out to hit Mythic. I remember when I hit I remember when I was Diamond 1 and I was like 3 wins away. I was like, I can do this. I know I can. It's in me, kind of thing, And maybe you had those experiences as well. And it doesn't matter what you haven't reached yet. When you reach it, it's a huge milestone. You just want to tell people. Like there's some personalities that that you want to keep it to yourself, and you're not very you don't put yourself out there that much. But if you are that type of person that does want to share your accomplishments, especially with a stream, and especially with you, MythicMatt, you're a very inclusive community too. That people feel like they can talk to you about anything, which is great about you. when they say
Thank
I
you.
made gold for the first time, they worked hard for it.
Exactly, and they're super excited about it, and I'm excited for them, and it's great that they can share that, and we can celebrate them together, and other people in the chat will celebrate that with them too, and that's what it's all about. Just kind of again building that community where people can celebrate each other and be happy hanging out there.
Now I have a controversial question to ask you,
Go
and
ahead.
you have to answer this correctly or you're banned. Um,
Deal. I'm ready for it.
um, what if there's? And I have to make two omissions to this. You can't
Okay.
say crepes and you can't say Belgian waffles. Now,
Wait, no Belgian waffles?
no, wait, not
Oh,
Belgian waffles. You can't say crepes and you can't say the what's the big fluffy waffles that are kind of like a mix
yeah,
between a
that's
pancake and a
that's a
waffle.
Belgian
You
waffle.
can't say Belgian waffles. What's your
Okay.
favorite? If you had them both in front of you, you can only eat one. You're freaking starving, but you can only eat one. Pancake or waffle?
All right. Well, I got to tell you, you made this question so much easier by forcing me to omit Belgian waffles because it's definitely pancakes then. Actually, I make protein pancakes pretty frequently. Usually on the weekends, I'll like throw a bunch of different fruits in there. And then here's my fitness tip, everybody.
Ooh, fitness tip.
Instead of
Okay.
maple syrup, cover your pancakes in whipped cream. It is at least as delicious, but only 15 calories per serving of whipped cream. So I frequently will pig out on protein pancakes with berries in them covered in whipped cream.
That is so next level. How did you figure that one out? You just tried it one day and you're like, this is good?
I was like, this is good. And I looked at the nutrition label and it was 15 calories. I'm like, all right, I could write one of those. Eat this, not that, folks.
I don't even know how many calories are in maple syrup, but it has to be way more than 15 if I had to make a guess.
Yeah, it's a couple hundred.
You weren't supposed to say the actual number, okay? You're not supposed to make me feel bad about myself. But you gave the right
It
answer, so
tastes
you're
good.
not. You gave the right answer, so you're not banned. Congratulations.
Excellent,
One
excellent.
more for Pancake Gang. Okay, waffles can't beat us. Now, where can everyone find you on social media? What are some of your links that you can say to the podcast?
Sure. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/MythicMatt. And you can find me on Twitter at MythicMattMTG. And then YouTube, it is also MythicMattMTG.
All right, you heard it there, my friends. One of the nicest streamers and content creators you'll ever meet in your entire life. MythicMatt. Make sure to check them out, twitch.tv/MythicMatt. Thank you once again very, very much for joining us on the StreamCast podcast, Matt.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, for sure. I spent a lot of time in your streams anyway, so this kind of feels like it was due for a long time.
Well, thanks.
We will see you for the next StreamCast in 1 week.